Greetings, everyone. This is Rockwell Spock with a retro review of My Best Friend is a Vampire. So, first and foremost, I meant to do this about a week ago, but life kind of got a little bit in the way, as it does. So, first off, this is supposed to be my first horror, or at least horror-adjacent retro review of October. Planning on doing... I'm going to try and do 3 or 4 more, as well as a few other retro reviews. Well, okay, at least one other that's not going to be horror-related. Yeah, I'm going to kind of cram them in where I can. But, yeah. I'm also working on plans for... planning ahead for next year. But anyways, so... My Best Friend is a Vampire. It's a little 80s horror comedy. More comedy than horror, but, you know... that I honestly discovered thanks to HBO, Comedy Central, one or the other, back in the 90s. But yeah, it's about a teenager turned into a vampire, and then the hijinks that ensue. Yeah. Some quick taste. It's really more than anything a teen comedy with horror and vampire tropes interwoven in it. And they actually work it really well. It is also very much a product of its time. So a good chunk of the humor does feel more than a little dated. Anywho, moving on to the cast. We got Robert Sean Leonard, the long-suffering oncologist Wilson from House, as Jeremy Capello, high school student, grocery delivery driver, and newly turned vampire. Next up is Cheryl Pollack as Darla Blake. She's described in the movie as a musical prodigy, plays the saxophone, possibly a Juilliard candidate, classmate and eventually girlfriend of Jeremy. Evan Moran is Ralph, Jeremy's best friend, kind of a jerk, and single-minded in his opinions on women. Renee Bergeron as MODOK, 264-year-old vampire helping Jeremy adjust to being a vampire. Drives a BMW with license plate Nightman. He's basically Jeremy's vampire counselor. Helping him, like I said, helping him adjust. Then you got David Warner as Professor Leopold McCarthy, a historian who believes a vampire Armageddon is imminent and does what he can to prevent it. Usually meaning killing people. You know, stake to the heart, setting things on fire, so on and so forth. This is the point when a lot of the role characters get a little shallow. Paul Wilson as Grimsdyke, who's Professor McCarthy's assistant and occasionally also his patsy. Kenneth Kimmins, of Coach fame, as Mr. Capello. Jeremy's father. It's implied that he has a job. I don't really think it's ever actually said what that job is. He at least tries to be a loving and supportive father. Fanny Flagg as Mrs. Capello. Jeremy's mother. Pretty sure she's actually portrayed as being just a housewife. Not much else. She's your typical 80s teen comedy mom. Loves her kid. Treats her kid's best friend as though they were her kid. You know. Then we get Cecilia Peck as Nora. She's the vampire who turns Jeremy. There's really not much more to her. It's it's hinted that she can turn into a cat. It's also kind of hinted that animal transformations in general, however, are a part of vampiric powers in this for this version of vampirism. So, what happens in the movie? We start off with a dream sequence. Jeremy explaining a dream that he's been having, where at the behest of a note passed to him in class from Darla Blake, he follows Darla into the girls' locker room at school. Things get hot and heavy, and suddenly Darla turns into this unknown woman he's never seen before. And after a little while, and things taking a slightly darker, yet still comedic turn, he wakes up. And apparently he's been having this dream for 4 nights in a row now. He explains about the dream to Ralph on their way to school. Ralph doesn't think much of Darla Blake, but is insistent that Jeremy go after another classmate of theirs who supposedly is all about him. But he's just not that interested. That afternoon at work, he like I said, he works at a grocery store as a delivery driver. He makes a delivery notice. No, he notes before taking it that that one, it's for all senior citizens that he delivers to, but this one order doesn't have any of the usual stuff that senior citizens get. Could be something different. And that's when he meets Nora, who is the woman from his dream. Her cat scratches his finger, and after she somewhat takes care of it, she invites him to return that night at midnight. So, of course, he does so, and while he's there and fooling around with Nora, she bites him on the neck. Their evening is interrupted, however, with the arrival of Professor McCarthy and Grimsdyke. Jeremy manages to escape, and Grimsdyke takes down the license plate number of the car that he escapes in. Ralph's car. So, things are starting to be a bit different for him, though. He can no longer see his reflection. He has an aversion to sunlight, bright light in general. He's not hungry. And there's also this weird guy following him around. Eventually, he, one, actually manages to ask out Darla, and two, actually talks to the weird guy, and the weird guy turns out to be MODOK, who explains, hey, you're a vampire, okay? I'm here to make the transition from your life as a normal human being into your life as a vampire easier. And he's dismissive of it at first. Jeremy's dismissive of it at first. After some kind of a vampire. But he goes out with Darla, and yeah, it just doesn't. While they're making out in his car, he stops himself from biting her and strands her there. Before heading on the way home, he stops at a butcher shop that MODOK gave him a card for that stays open late, and gets some pig's blood. We get a montage of him of the changes he's been making little by little to his life and becoming a vampire, and MODOK's approving of it, and he learns about his vampiric abilities. He tells Ralph he's a vampire. He also manages to convince Darla to give him a second chance. There are also some hijinks in practicing with his powers, such as Ralph asks him to, you know, convince a girl to, basically make a love slave for him, and well, yeah, it goes comically wrong, but as terrible a concept as it is, it still goes comically wrong. However, MODOK then says, "Yeah, I've got to go, and you've done really well, and read your handbook. Oh, and if you don't mind, keep an eye on my car for the next century or so." And so, turns out that Professor and Grip thinks that Ralph is the vampire, not Jeremy. So the Professor kidnaps Ralph, and then Jeremy saves him. But it's revealed that Jeremy's the vampire, and so McCarthy tries to kill Jeremy, but instead Nora and MODOK basically drag him aside and turn him, leaving Grimsdyke to fend for himself, though Grimsdyke simply runs away. MODOK, Nora, McCarthy, some other vampires pop up, all run off as well. Turn into wolves and run off. While Jeremy decides he wants to stick around and enjoy life as him for a while. And everyone seems to live happily ever after. The end. So the ups and downs. I thought it sets up the rules for how vampirism works well, but at the same time, it did so in such a manner that there was enough wiggle room so that Nora's return at the end doesn't seem too far fetched. Also, the whole thing of turning into animals is another thing that's kind of, okay, doable. It weaved in vampire tropes into a screwball high school comedy actually pretty well. Usually by turning either a vampire trope on its ear or a high school comedy trope on its ear. On the downside, a lot of the characters are really one note. Just look at my descriptions of the various characters. The Capellos, they're loving parents. That's their traits for the both of them. Nothing else really. Even the primary characters have very little meat to them. It's kind of okay. Here's this character. Hell, even Jeremy's kind of not exactly the deepest character. As I mentioned it earlier, it's dated, and a lot of the humor has not aged well. Not all of it. I mean, there are still some jokes that land, and still landed 30 years ago, and still land today. But yeah, there is a lot that just kind of it has become at the very least, a little cringeworthy. Finally, the opening narration, which kind of goes with the title in general, but yeah, the movie begins with the dream that Jeremy has, and Jeremy saying, "If I had to pick a point for when all this craziness began, it would have to be the dream." Okay, so who are you telling this story to? He tells the story of the dream. That's the last bit of narration we have. It's kind of one of those, you don't just start narrating a movie and then, like I said, 5 minutes and say, yeah, you know what? We're not narrating this anymore. Also, like I said, the title of the movie is My Best Friend is a Vampire, not I was a vampire or I am a vampire. Apparently, the Australian title is a more accurate title. I was a teenage vampire. But yeah, overall, it's a fun, albeit yes, slightly dated horror comedy that makes good use of its the tropes the tropes of the various genres it incorporates. Rating wise, I mean it's pretty middle of the road, so 3 out of 5. It's at least halfway decent 80s horror comedy. Anyway, that's it for now. As always, feel free to like, share, and subscribe. Links to my Facebook, Twitter, Patreon, and PayPal can be found in the description box down below. This is Rock and Roll Spock signing off saying, live long and rock hard.